These are the instructions for assembling the BNC quad shield connector, patent number 6241553. The color of the sleeve on the connector doesn't matter, it is simply used for identification purposes. The patent number is located on a ridge in the center of the connector. We will be using this ridge to mark our proper insertion depth later on in this presentation. First, let's set up our stripping tool for the proper setting. The arrow should be pointing at the 6 as shown for RG6 cable. The cable we are using is RG6 quad shield ControlNet cable. Make sure the end of the cable is rounded. The proper distance to insert the cable into the stripping tool is so it's at the end of the orange. If you have it come out to the end of the gray, that's for a different connector, that's the wrong measurement. So line up the end of the connector with the end of the orange and strip it around 2 or 3 times. Don't pull the tool off, unclamp it, and then remove it. When you've removed it, you can pull off the end and we'll see if the proper insertion depth has been set. The tool should be adjusted so that none of the outer braid gets cut off like this when you do it, and also that the inner conductor does not get nicked right at this point. So you need to inspect to see if it's being nicked at this point. You also need to inspect to see if any of the braid is coming off. To adjust the stripping depth, first remove the hex key from the bottom of the stripping tool. The right hand screw adjusts the depth of the blade that removes the outer sheath. The left screw is the screw that adjusts the depth of the blade that removes the white center dielectric. Alright, I've backed out the screw that adjusts the sheath by 1/2 turn, and let's try it again. Remember, the end of it lines up, end of the cable lines up with the end of the orange. Go around 2 or 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Unclamp it. Remove it without pulling off the sheath. And look, none of the braiding has come off, so we've been successful. The next step is to fold back the outer braid over the black insulating sheath. The next step is to peel back the outer foil shield, and in order to do that I just put a little nick in it with a razor knife so it would start peeling nicely, and then I just remove the outer foil. Then you want to fold back the inner braid as shown all the way around. Leaving only the center foil, which does not need to be peeled back, although you could if you wanted to. Now, an inspection of the end of this reveals that a small amount of the braid got wrapped around the center conductor. Can you see that? So we need to get that out of there, obviously, or we'll have a short. Now that both braids have been folded back and the outer foil has been removed, and we've checked and removed any shorts going to the center conductor, we're ready to mark our insertion depth. According to the instructions, there's supposed to be 5 millimeters exposed of center conductor and 6 millimeters exposed of the dielectric. You can verify this with a little 6 millimeter gauge with a 4 millimeter reference shown on top of it, and you can take your cable and do a check to see if it looks like it's 5 millimeters and 6 millimeters. Here's how you can ensure that you've achieved the proper insertion depth when you assemble the connector in the next step. Simply line up the outer sheath with the bottom of the strip where the US patent number is listed, and then use your thumbnail to mark the cable where it lines up with the bottom of the connector. That mark will serve as your guide. Here I've lined up the end of the outer sheath with the bottom of the patent number strip, and I'm going to mark it at the bottom with my thumbnail. For the purposes of the video, I've put a paint mark at that point so it can be more easily seen. To push on the cable, I find it helpful to use something to provide a firm surface, because it takes quite a push to put the cable on. And as you can see, my silver mark there is now lined up with the end of the connector, so I've achieved the proper insertion depth. Now we're going to use the compression tool. The first thing we need to do is to put the proper head on, and that's this head right here. While the tool is open, you might even consider using the tool to help you hold the connector still while you insert the cable. Now we simply take the cable, insert it in the tool, line it up with the head, squeeze it. You hear how it ratchets? When it's done, it releases. And now your connector is ready for the electrical testing.